Hello, my name is Roger Bloor and I'm one of the editors of The Alchemy Spoon, along with Mary Mulholland and Vanessa Lampert. And we'd like to welcome you to this launch of the spell issue of The Alchemy Spoon. We had an amazing range of responses to the theme of spell, and within this issue you'll find a rich and varied selection of poetry, spells, potions, incantations, intermingled with insightful reviews, an interview with Pascal Petit, an essay by Leslie Sharp, which explores the transformational things which happen within the work of Adrienne Rich, and a personal view by Chris Hardy, which explores the connection between poetry and music. Tonight, 20 of the poets have recorded their readings of poems from the issue, but to start off the proceedings, I'm really excited to welcome Helen Ivory, who generously agreed to do an introduction to this launch. Helen is a poet and a visual artist. She edits the webzine Ink, Sweat and Tears and is course director for the UEA Creative Writing Programme. Her collection, An Anatomical Venus, published by Blood Axe in 2019, examines how women have been portrayed as witches, hysterics, beautiful corpses cast in wax, or on mortuary slabs in TV box sets. So, welcome Helen Ivory.
Every good caster of spells knows that the spell is not entirely cast until it is incanted. And every conjurer worth their salt will know the word abracadabra is not a nonsense word, but a folk translation of an Aramaic phrase meaning, I will create as I speak. It is fitting then that a book of spells is cast out into the world in this way, words spoken into the air broadcast directly to you via the modern day magic of the internet, a kind of technomancy if you will. And the spells arrive disguised as poems and unpack themselves in your head, and there will be all manner of parley in there while the images and metaphors appear before, or should I say behind, your very eyes, charged with the power of their enchanters. So relax, you've already pressed play, let the spells do their work. Who says poetry makes nothing happen? Abracadabra.
So, our first poet is Pat Winslow. Pat's published 7 collections, most recently Kissing Bones with Templar Poetry. She's won several notable competitions over the years and currently enjoying commissioned collaborations with artists, filmmakers and composers, and also works as a storyteller. Pat Winslow.
New Broom. It is not far-fetched to say that there was at least a touch of it in our house. How she would never wear green or open an umbrella indoors. And if the Romany came, she'd buy their heather, and spilt salt she always threw over one shoulder or both for good measure. Apart from the occasional ladder or mirror, we lived well enough, 4 cramped in a 1-bedroomed flat with 2 cats for company and the largest spiders you've ever seen. Good fortune followed my sister to America and me to a wandering life. My mother picked a 4-leafed clover for a husband, and that was her future decided. As for the grandmother, she was away with the fairies, taken in the middle of the night, and not a single speck of dust remained.
Next we're going to hear Amlan Goswami's poem from issue 3. Amlan has been published in journals and anthologies around the world. He was a Best of the Net nominee, and his poems have appeared on street walls in Christchurch, exhibitions in Johannesburg, an e-gallery in Brighton, and on buses in Philadelphia. Amlan was hoping to record a video for us for this launch, but he lives in Delhi, and as you'll know, it's in the grips of a major pandemic problem at the moment, and unfortunately some of Amlan's family have contracted COVID, so he wasn't able to record the video, and asked if someone could read it for him. So I'm really pleased that Amart Kaushik, a London-based poet, has very kindly agreed to read the poem for him. So here we have Amart Kaushik reading Amlan Goswami's poem.
Hi, my name is Amart Kaushik, and I'm reading this poem on behalf of the poet Amlan Goswami, who unfortunately, because of the grim COVID situation in India, wasn't able to record this work. So it's my privilege and honor to be able to read this beautiful poem to you. A poem travels to Bortungsa. Father Thomas read my poem and sent it to Sister Lucy, who sent it to Sister Mary, who sent it to Sister Stella, who set it to tune. She did not have a phone or lights on, but she had a guitar voice that lit up 1,000 stars in the moonlight. There were crickets trilling in the dark, the sound of dung beetles, an odd croak of a frog, village fish in the pond that came up from crystal waters to hear her sing. The words didn't matter. What remained was the feeling, something like Joan Baez or Joni Mitchell, but better. The song was carried by birds, flies, dung beetles, eagle, hawk, and sparrow. It found a place in the narrow space of the human heart. Backseat, a mountain jeep, trundling down. Father Thomas says the world is flat. I think it means crickets are still dreaming.
Next we have Lizzie Ballaga. Lizzie spent all of her professional life in editorial and teaching work, and now enjoys more time to write. She's a member of the UK Society of Authors and the Poetry Society, and lives and works in southern England. Lizzie Ballaga.
Hello everyone. I'm reading to you Spell for Summer. Just sit there for a spell, they said, and I watched for some proper person with a wand, a spangled cloak and pointy hat to whisk away the silence, the waiting. No one appeared in starlight or in swirls of darkness. No one turned up in twilight or in breaking half-light. Childlike, I might be spellbound still, had I not realized long ago that an incantation I call my own is at the intersection of time and trance. As at dawn in midsummer, when a wren cracks mirrored darkness, shatters silence with the thin wand of her cavernous beak, splinters sky into a zillion shines of magic, casting out gratuitous stars, night clouds, all without the chanting of a single charm, miles from any wishbone silence in the clockwork now of summer sunrise. Thank you. I'm delighted to have been a part of Alchemy Spoon number 3. Thank you.
Sue Brandt Walker is Professor Emerita at the University of South Alabama, where she taught creative writing. She served as Poet Laureate of Alabama from 2003 to 2012. Has published 10 books and is the editor and publisher of Negative Capability Press. Sue Brandt Walker.
New Orleans, Louisiana. The yellow fever epidemic in Marie Laveau, 1878. A Terzanel. In this ravaging, savage summer of yellow fever, Madame Marie Laveau, voluptuous voodoo queen, cast healing, febrile curing spells. This deliverer. Throughout New Orleans, woeful screams, horrid scenes, black vomit, bleeding eyes and flame saffron yellow skin. The work of Bronze John, that hellish, murderous fiend. Rebel rain ditches, fetid drains, bodies dead, unclean. Marie's own child at home, Dyer sick and nearly dead, her burning flesh turning bright carotene. In the midst of unmitigated spine-chilling dread, Marie, take out your healing gree-gree bag with its eyes of newt and spoiled fish head, your chicken feathers, the balls of stags in these dog days of rain and the stench of harm. Queen, save us from loss, from body bags. Everywhere there's illness. Mosquitoes swarm in this ravaging, savage summer of yellow fever. Dance, madam, with zombie around your arm. Cast curing febrile spells. This, you, deliverer.
I'd like to introduce Jennifer Magowan. Jennifer took her PhD from the University of Wales. She's a disabled poet and short story writer, starting submitting to journals at the age of 5 and just kept on going. Much prefers the late 15th century to the early 21st, except for indoor plumbing, which she says can stay. Jennifer Magowan.
This is based on the magical praxis of late antiquity. For Severus. Falcon, falcon, fly swift as Cupid's dart, fly swift as coursing hares, bring Severus' love to me. Eagle, eagle, you alone carry the sun, you alone can bear the burden, bring my love to Severus. Owl, owl, you can hear my heart beats for Severus. You can see my soul longs for Severus. Listen to Severus. Bring his words to me. O falcon, O eagle, your claws are sharp as any dart, your wings as fast as baying hounds. Should Severus gaze full on another, should his heart beat for another, falcon, bring me her heart. Eagle, bring me his heart, and I will burn them both to ash. Do it now, now, quickly, quickly.
Now we have Sharon Ashton. Sharon graduated in classics in the 70s, trained as a nurse in the 80s, and graduated in creative writing in the 2000s. She's a published poet and novelist. She retired from nursing to write more, but now finds herself giving COVID vaccines. And her work can be found at her website, sharonashtonpoetry.com. Sharon Ashton.
Bell, book and candle. I'd use it open, this crumple of paper loosed from my daughter's clenched fist that still holds enough of her heat to sear my heart and quicken its beat, forcing me to breathe, just breathe, while the script reveals itself. Red margin, turquoise ruled, inked in black, its heading, wanted back, is twice underlined. And beneath, in schoolgirl neat print, matching cherry lip gloss and varnish borrowed last term, beaded top and skinny jeans Kate lent you for Sophie's party, all £30 cash. Jade's bluestone slide, the one in the shape of a butterfly from Accessorize. 4 names follow: Sarah, Danny, Jade, Kate, each penned with practice flourishes. And finally, what I think looks like a Cairo, until I see a kiss crossed through. And I know this is a potent spell, cast in looping words that even unmouthed can drag a young girl into young girl's hell. And I know too that for her I would fly into their rooms as they slept, turn into boulders on their chests, conjure boils for faces and necks, summon cellulite spots and pus from piercings. But what I do instead is burn the page, and in my head keep a list of their names.
And now it's Bill Jenkinson's turn. Bill Jenkinson likes English, French and German poetry and making poems from pictures, sculptures, photographs, films or music. He's contributed to exchanges with Bonn poets and projects in Oxford museums, including the Ashmolean and the Pitt Rivers. And he helped run the Oxford Stanza 2, has done so since 2011. Bill Jenkinson.
Still, give me a nose for the sweetest malt barley. Take it nut brown, steep till it sprouts. Let me mix and brew mash and give life to strong spirit. Let mash murmur in the boiler. Let me know that thrumming, stilla, stillae, stillarum. A drop, then drops. Let it stream from the neck. Aquae vitae, clear potent liquor from father to son. Let no exciseman find it. Keep it hidden underground. Keep it from harm as I would my son.
We now welcome Elsa Peder. Elsa came to poetry late following a career as a vet. Her poems have been published in Magma, Strand, Strix and several anthologies. Her pamphlet, The Dogs That Chase Bicycle Wheels, won the 2015 Dyslexia Pamphlet Competition, and her first collection is due out with Sharon in June. Elsa Peder.
The box room. The greatest secrets are always hidden in the most unlikely places. Roald Dahl. I collected bunches of rosebuds from the wallpaper and carried armfuls of them into my dreams. I wrote notes to fairies and stuffed them into the ear of a lion through an unpicked seam. I climbed to the top of the wardrobe and recited a spell 3 times so I could fly around the lampshade. I stepped onto an eiderdown raft and floated down a willow brush stream. I willed the tall boy to don kingly armour and guard the gates of my castle with a mighty sword. I remember how each evening a sage conjured words from the approaching shadows, encouraged me to stand on an old blanket box underneath the window and watch for the subtle greening of spring.
Oliver Smith is a writer from Cheltenham. He was nominated for the 2020 Pushcart Prize and won the 2019 BSFS competition. He holds a PhD in Literary and Critical Studies. Oliver Smith.
Life. Is not all maraschino cherries. The light does not cascade through sugar glass in golden beams to sweeten her dusty room, and there is no royal icing on her roof. What good are gingerbread walls in autumn when the rain plays a baroque toccata on the corrugated iron of your barn? Among the gnarled thickets and tangled groves, she clicks a single tooth at the sizzle and spit of crow fat heating in the pan. She squats upon a nest of besom twigs woven in the soil to hold her witch's eggs, where she hopes to hatch a sturdy man who curls like a seed in her future. She polishes a gilded cage that swings on a ceiling chain. She checks the restraints for his arms of bronze, strong, tender, and tasty as month-aged beef. He could be lured on paths where no path leads nor mortal dares, so she bribes the birds with crumbs and feeds the darkness stones. It was delectable when she tasted one before, but he was only a young and tender shoot, so she plants a little cut-in the clay to propagate like wild onions, bluebells, poison ivy, mandragora, and the mushroom mould in the woodland loam. She flushes, hot as an iron stove stoked with flaming hag bones. She steps, smouldering passion from the pyre. Poke your pale finger from the earth, my love, she calls. Some flybait burrows from the dirt. She makes the best of her disappointment, plucks him by his limply bedraggled stalk. Her man screams like a mandrake in the skillet with her cauldron fire, hissing in the rain.
Jane Lovell is an award-winning British poet whose work focuses on our relationship with the planet and its wildlife. Her latest collection is God of Lost Ways from Indigo Dreams. Jane also writes for Dark Mountain, Photographers Against Wildlife Crime, and Elementum Journal. She lives in Kent and is writer-in-residence at Rye Harbour Nature Reserve. Jane Lovell.
Devil Black. A kettle of blue gulls begins to rumble, its jawed larvae frantic in the rising heat. Steam fills the room, veils the glass. We hold our breath, add honey, hemlock, vitriol. Swirl and simmer and still. In the cool of evening we slip the ink from its stew. Bottled and corked, its devil black is dense enough to block the sun. Hunched over centuries, you scribe your words. Each time you rest your pen, ghosts appear behind the skin.
Kate Noakes is a PhD student at Reading University. She's researching contemporary British and American poetry, and her most recent collection is Filthy Quiet 2019 Parthian Press. She lives in London, where she acts as trustee for the writer development organisation Spread the Word. Kate Noakes.
Ham House Witchcraft. At my feet, in the kitchen garden, jackdaws are after the crumbs my predecessor on the bench has dropped on the gravel. 6 of them at one point, from the flock moving between bare oaks and new dug plots, back and forth and again. I am still, watching, restful, taking my breather. A goth and her birds are never parted, my daughter says, bringing me mint tea and scattering the birds. Later, a crow with white feathers fringing its wings makes 2 passes, while I read of medicinal plants used in the 17th century. Tansy for fevers and sores, wormwood for nausea and loss of appetite. Were I superstitious, he might signify. I note genetic variation and diversity.
Chrissy Dreyer is a mother and former teacher who now works for an online educational enterprise. Alongside reading and writing, she enjoys listening to music and playing the drums. She plays in a function band. Chrissy Dreyer.
Playdate on the moon. She says she'll freeze time, pause the world with one whirl of her wand, leave us free to move as we like. We'll lasso streams of bunting around the moon's crescent, swing ourselves up with the strength of Tarzan, cheer as friends arrive by balloon, stash Earth's gravity into pockets, fling it like we're feeding ducks, enjoy warm granules between toes, feast on hugs and grown-up-sized milkshakes served in wheelbarrows, which we'll race each other in. Sit on the edge, arms over shoulders, legs dangling as we peer through the world's most powerful telescope, down onto vast spilt colour. Point out tiny cars, scattered like stickle bricks, play hopscotch, sign our names on rocks in our best cursive writing, suck on sherbet fountains, giggle at how they set mouths alight, coat noses from a tipped tube, make volcanoes out of glitter, cartwheel across the moon's surface, hold hands as we marvel at the satellite's beauty. Draw this moment on canvas, gift it to each other, and, just before the magic fades, pocket our treasured art, hug one last time, zipline down the bunting, rope taut like our cheeks, through open windows, into toasty beds.
Kate Young lives in Kent. Her poems have appeared in 9 Muses, Ekphrastic Review, Nitrogen House, Words for the Wild, Poetry on the Lake, Hedgehog Press, and a Scottish Writers' Centre chapbook. Kate has also featured in the anthologies Places of Poetry and Write Out Loud. Kate Young.
Shapeshifter. Now naked, she reads the pages of skin. Her reflection sags, comforting, like the gentle rise and fall of her breast, caressed by lovers long gone. It is a decade since she truly looked at herself, each wrinkle, mole, spider red vein weaving away on the contour of paper flake skin. A scatter of freckles settles on cheek. Her face has gained the slapdash air of Pollock's brush, the random swirl of Van Gogh stars cast over the Rhone. She hesitates, and for the first time perceives me, dares to speak my name. The pool of her eyes are wells. Dig deep, I think. Intrusion is short-lived. I wait to pull the breath from her body, eyes lock, sockets like magnets. And in the split of time, she reads me, knows how the story will end.
Chris Hardy's poems have been widely published in magazines, anthologies and online. He is also a musician in Little Machine, performing their settings of well-known poems at literary festivals. His 4th collection, Sunshine at the End of the World, published by Indigo Dreams, and his 5th collection is Key to the Highway, which will be published this summer by Shoestring Press. Chris Hardy.
Steve Halliwell and Walter Ray were in rock bands in the 80s and 90s, touring America and making albums. The band broke up for the usual reasons and they went their separate ways. Steve became an English teacher in London. One day, after many years apart, they met in a supermarket in Streatham. "What are you doing? Where have you been?" And Steve explained that he was teaching English and that he'd made a setting of the Lake Isle of Innisfree, as both of them continued to play music. And Walter said, "Oh, that sounds interesting. I'll pop round." And so they met up in Steve's studio, and Walter brought along his setting of Ozymandias by Shelley. A few months later, I turned up with my setting of Western Wind, the English lyric, and that's how Little Machine began as a working band. We still play Ozymandias whenever we can get on stage.
Hey, it's working. Extensive anyway, very dramatic.
Visage lies, whose frown and wrinkled lip
smear of cold command. Tell that sculptor well those passions red, which yet survive, stamped on these lifeless things. The hand that loved them, and the heart that fed. And on the pedestal these words appear. My name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. On my words, ye mighty and despair. Nothing beside remains round the decay of that colossal wreck. Boundless and bare, and though that level sands stretch far away,
Nicole Lee is a London-based poet who was born in Kuala Lumpur. She has worked as a banker in Hong Kong and London. Nicole has previously been long-listed in the National Poetry Competition. Here's Nicole.
Kolguyo dreams. The dog dances in the ancient realm of Kolguyo. Sleep, sleep now, my young one, my blade. The singer sings at the park. The student dreams at the library, and I dream too in Choson where the blades clash. The cats sleep on the garden house roof, and I sing of rain spattering, dripping through cracked tiles, as the man and the woman danced. I dance no more. I sing at the library where the woman and the man sang, where the student, a far-off look in his eyes, elbows on his textbook, dreams, at the library. And the child sleeps in him. Child dances, dreams.
Next, we have Gurupreet Khalsa. She lives in Mobile, Alabama. She has a PhD in instructional design and works as an online instructor in graduate training programs. Here's Gurupreet.
Spells. Irresistible magical influences. 1. The July hot spells took our breath away. Playing in an afternoon rain shower, cooling our bare feet in puddles on the dirt road, we wished for a wand and a spell to make these days last forever. Although I didn't really. I liked school. 2. One thing I could always do was spell the words. I can remember only one test in 4th grade where I misspelled a word. I was devastated. Even now, affect and effect and there and there and there and your, and not to mention the horrors of lie and lay, give me a spell of palpitations. Good thing I didn't live where tires and colors were in favor. I'd have no defense. I'd have needed a spell to cope, or additional labor. 3. To have the power to cast one spell, to have one wish come true, how to choose? You can't cheat and wish for 3 more spells or wishes. It has to be firm and finite. You also can't wish to go back in time and change an event. Time does not work that way, at least not yet. As kids, we don't see the big picture of ramifications, don't have wisdom to evaluate impacts of life-changing moments and choices. Are adults any better? Should I wish for a perfect memory, to be able to thumb back through the book of days and recall all I have learned? Maybe I should store away my one wish so that if I'm asked on the spot with 12 seconds to respond, I'll be ready. 4. When I was 10 or so, we played a game that required each kid to pick one superpower they'd like to have. Everyone's had to be different. The power of invisibility was a popular one. Evade parents, rob a bank, or X-ray vision, see through walls. But my choice was to be able to fly. 5. This was different from the rainy day game where each one got to pick one item from each page of the Sears catalog. Delight in picking the most fashionable dresses. Critical thinking required about which tool or appliance would be most beneficial to own. Kind of like the other game, where we decided what items required for survival would fit in one suitcase. 6. My grandma never said, "Come in and sit a spell." I don't recall my grandma doing anything but moving with purpose. When she visited, she cooked, sewed, washed dishes, looked after kids. When we visited her, she took us to see historical forts, bought bushels of beans that we had to shell, carted us to vacation Bible school to make popsicle stick bowls and memorize Bible verses. No recliner in front of the TV for this woman. 7. My grandma didn't practice voodoo love spells like Marie Laveau. Queen Marie, she demonstrated that a judicious use of voodoo could bring about important life changes. I don't know, though. Somehow forcing someone to love you could come back to bite. Better just to be lovable from the start. No poking pins into dolls. 8. I do fly, sometimes at night, spellbound behind my eyelids, held aloft by friendly breezes, doing backflips and twirls and corkscrews before arrowing off to limitless destinations. The nice thing about that space behind eyelids is that it is infinite and not black, but full of expansive universes, the Apiron, Wuji, Wuqiang. You can't fly to the margins there because there are none. Just keep flying, floating, twinkling. 9. Let me spell it out for you. There isn't such a thing as magic, except there is.
Now we have Jonathan Bradley. Jonathan has been writing poetry from an early age. His publications include Papillons, a kaleidoscope of butterflies, and Sibling Poets, and he has articles and poems in magazines. His next collection is forthcoming. Here's Jonathan.
Under a spell of shyness. She haunts the bedroom window every day, her alter egos lost in dustbin bags. She's now the only actor in a play where nothing happens. Every minute drags. She fears a footstep right outside her door, of no one, going nowhere on the stairs for refuge on a non-existent floor where desperate people hide away their cares. Her neighbor waits in vain for minor treats, an unexpected letter, or the chance to spot a passing police car in the streets. Despair is too much effort in his trance. Although divided only by a wall, a spell of shyness holds them in its thrall.
Now we have Vicky Gatehouse. Vicky is from West Yorkshire, and she began writing poetry midlife after a career in medical research. She has won several prizes, and her pamphlet, The Mechanics of Love, was published by Smith's Doorstep in 2019.
Hello, it's a real pleasure to have a poem in the spell edition of the Alchemy Spoon. So the inspiration for this poem came from an exhibit which is on display at the Pitt Rivers Museum in Oxford. And it's a bottle, a rather voluptuous and silvered bottle, which was donated to the museum back in 1915. And the lady who donated the bottle claimed that there was a witch trapped inside. And the bottle has been on display ever since. And as you can imagine, the seal has never been broken. Witch in a bottle. Nearly 100 years inside this glass womb. Its hourglass curves swilled with glucose, silver nitrate to coat the ribs, so they'll never tarnish, and no one can check for that creeping bloom of breath to see if she still lives. Someone feared her enough to filch the half-moon clippings of her nails, to knot up the strands from her brush. One of the old spells, a clutch of bent and rusted nails forced through the bottle's mouth to scour her skin, her eyes. The belly of this vessel a pond, in which her spider weight has been ducked 1,000 times in the urine of the one who bound her. Let her out, there'll be a peck of trouble. In dreams you turn feral, blood roar in your ears as you race for the woods. Tear out the wax plug with your teeth, and she pours herself into you, boneless and silvered as a genie. Uncorked from sleep, you're spilling at the brim with her wildness, her grief. Thank you.
Juliet Lee is a coach, facilitator and an award-winning speaker for a leading chief executive organisation. She spent 25 years working as a chemical engineer in the north of England before returning to her native Scotland. Juliet now follows her joint passions for horses and poetry. Here's Juliet.
Day of the Dead. Bones bounce as I cross the boundary. Feel the change weave into the underworld. Flesh peels away as I pedal further. Cavernous holes appear in my skull. I have foreseen our wedding. Purple flower gripped in my gumless teeth. A white shroud hangs from my shoulders. My beloved has a cane and a black top hat. The streets are lined with flowers, candles, and grim hombres chattering, "Choose a kind man." I taste tequila, the flesh of the worm in the base of my glass. I have been faithful to the White Cross. A shadow man gave me a parcel as a reward, but I was shocked at the contents. How can it be the same school blazer after 30 years? Yet here I am, pedaling on this dusty Mexican road to marry a gentleman, honest to his bare bones, trustworthy as the death rattle.
Lira Mae Barcinilla was born in the Philippines in a province filled with magic, tradition and superstition. She now lives in Birmingham and writes on subjects such as the diaspora, memory, mythology and the state of duality. Here's Lira Mae.
Pieces of Peace. 1. Some Megiddo flowers that used to grow in white clusters just past the painted gates in the half-light of dawn. 2. Falling asleep in the heat of worn sofas to the sound of static on the TV and the buzz of radio in our grandmother's room. 3. The myth said the sun and the moon were siblings, and when they fought for who got to rule the skies, the sun god accidentally blinded the moon goddess. To make amends, they decided to rule for half the day. 4. The lost tales and dried flowers pressed inside flood-worn encyclopedias, lining the wooden shelves like staves in a song. 5. The Ibang Adarna, mythical flame-feathered bird whose song entices sleep herself. They said she still hides in the woods behind the yellow house. No one hears her anymore. 6. The small white butterfly swimming around the Emerald Springs, the one next to the green mountain with the face of a Dewata. 7. They still talk about a stranger who visits the village sometimes. She glides through the lonely strip of road like a myth, eyes lingering too long on the gates. Then she disappears. No one knows her name. 8. The sun-yellow lanzones sold by the side of the road by strangers with familiar smiles. 9. No one talks about the ones that disappear. They leave the scent of some bagita in their wake. 10. It's all stories, really. Just stories.
Mary Senior is a psychology graduate from the Black Country. She likes to experiment with structure, often focusing on the ethereal nature of identity and the natural world. She has had poems published by Abergavenny Small Press. Here's Mary.
Bella, listen to the elms that whisper spells into the wind, winding crow-leg limbs winter strip to split the sky. Mephistophelian murmurings, witching walkers, haunting hikers, sortilege shaped and stretched, spun into sensation and the omnipresent fear of being watched. And look, strange markings on the monolith. Who put Bella in the witch elm?
Well, that's the end of a really exciting evening. We're really pleased to have been able to bring you this launch, and I'd like to thank all of the poets who contributed, Helen Ivory for doing the introduction, and all the other poets within the issue 3, the reviewers and essay writers. The issue is published now and can be bought from Clayhanger Press. The link for that website is on the screen now, and it's also available online. You can chase that link through the Alchemy Spoon website, which is also at the bottom of the screen now. So, once more, thanks very much for attending. Good night and good poetry.
Abracadabra.